Hey y'all, praise the Lord. So I'm going to be speaking on a topic regarding, those who may be in school, whether you're in middle school, high school, you could be in college and you're, trying to follow the Lord and keep that balance. I was talking with a couple of, individual not too long ago in reference to schooling. And this is why I'm making this message. I want to speak of my experiences when it came to following the Lord while being in school. Now, during the time when it occurred, the Lord would use things like that to prune you to the people who He has called you to be. Being in school is actually a very good training ground. Being on the job is a good training ground because we need certain things to purge us. So, when I was going through this stuff, I was still very worldly. I didn't have that discernment and that wisdom at the time to really understand what was going on and how to effectively fight it off. So this is why I'm making this message. When I was in school, I did experience a lot of extreme rejection, not just rejection, but extreme rejection. As you know, if you have ever suffered from extreme rejection, you don't know how to deal with it. The enemy already has a foothold on you because that one thing opens up the door for all of the spirits to come in and just wreak havoc in your life. It leads to pride, bitterness building up, you having a hard heart, and being ignorant to how to let it go. It's hard, and I empathize with anyone who's in that situation. It took me having to make some sacrifices and really having to be humble and really renewing the mind, because as I said, when I was going through it at the time, I didn't know how to handle it, so a lot of damage was done. Now that I'm in a position to know how to better handle it, it's like I'm still have to let go of that damage from the past more and more, so it really more so started in middle school. There are some things that occurred when I was in elementary school, but really in middle school. Of course, as you know, a lot of people go to school, you experience a lot of bullying. As you know, that is demonic. It is like the tactic of intimidation, where the enemy tries to intimidate you. You have to remember, the enemy knows who we are before we even know who we are. So the enemy will try to do things to keep us in bondage, to keep us ensnared in his trap until we come into the knowledge of the truth. And the enemy will use intimidation. He will use bullying. He will use rejection to try to ensnare you, like he attempted to try to do with me. Now, there is something that I really want to heavily point out. And I noticed this pattern in elementary school, I noticed this pattern in middle school, and I noticed this pattern in high school. I experienced a lot of bullying, as I said, and a lot of rejection from people. It was very, very extreme in high school. It started in 10th grade and on up, and it just got worse. It seemed like it got worse year after year. It was always something. Of course, you can't control what people do or say about you, but I've had people, they just will make it known to me up in front of my face that they didn't like me, experiencing physical persecution from time at certain times. That was more so like in middle school when that occurred, and even in elementary school. I was a third grader at the time, and there was this 5th grade boy, and I noticed he had feminine tendencies to him. He was considered to be gay. And, he had picked a fight with me. I was in 3rd grade, and this was a 5th grade, boy. And he had picked a fight with me all out the blue. I didn't do anything to this boy. He just went past me, I guess just looking for a fight. And, I tried to fight him off the best way I could, being a 3rd grader. But I noticed every time I went through something with people in high school, when it came to the bullying, the intimidation, the rejection, I noticed that a lot of those individuals did struggle with a homosexual spirit. Now, I'm finna get into a little bit of the meat, I know the Apostle Paul talked about how it's good to stay on the milk and how a lot of people couldn't handle the milk, so he didn't talk about a lot of the meat. But I am finna get into this meat basic so you can hopefully get an understanding for those of you who could have undergone this. When I was experiencing that, I noticed a lot of those individuals were in some homosexual practices, whether female, okay. The way I seen it, these spirits, you have a lesbian spirit, the women, in the women, there is a spirit with the men, and there is, the bisexual spirit, the spirit that likes both. And I noticed with all 3 of those spirits, the one that was most fierce was that bisexual spirit. The one with the men, in men, I have dealt with that spirit. It's not as extreme as the others, but you have to keep in mind these homosexual spirits are no low-ranking spirits. These are some, I don't even want to give them credit and stuff, but they're a little up there, y'all. And some of you probably have dealt with them. They really are heavy in the area of trying to isolate you and intimidate you and corner you, just make you feel like you're just nothing, like you don't even exist. Now, to tell you the truth, I was always a loner, so I didn't too much care if people didn't really like, talk. But it was how they did it. Like they would make it a point to say, "Oh, I hate her. I don't like her. She just irritating. I just can't stand her." And I was more so of a girl who was to myself. I didn't go around starting trouble. But because I was so used to experiencing that in high school, it got engrafted into my mind. Like, you know what? Okay, since I know nobody don't like me, I'm just going to keep staying to myself. I'm not finna go to befriend people. So the point I'm making is, like, my personality, based on that pain and things I experienced, contribute to me being a loner at the time. And things probably could have been a little easier had I not undergone that. I say that because sometimes, although those are some of you who are following the Lord, you can go to school. Sometimes things can't be easy for you. I guess it all depends. But the Lord used that as training ground for me to observe the different tactics that the enemy will use. Like with girls, when they're by themselves, they seem to be nice and kind. But when you get them up in a group, no, it's just problems. They start acting hard. They start talking stuff to their friends. But if you catch them by themselves, they're quiet. Of course, that is the tactic of the Jezebel spirit, to like to corner you and try to intimidate you, to try to make it seem like, hey, it's more of us and it's only one of you. It really takes having to know your identity, and it does take, needing to pray. Now, at the time when I was going through stuff, I more so held anger towards the people rather than really looking at this stuff on a deeper level, on a deeper spiritual level. People do have to give in to spirits, and then sometimes it could just be the spirits themselves based on what the person could have undergone within their life. So it took me having to renew my mind to understanding that when the spirits are in operation, need discernment to discern when I'm talking to the person versus when I'm talking to the spirit, which helped me in being able to let it go a tad bit easier. I know at that time I'm like, why do all these people don't like me? Why they can't stand me? Why are they saying all these things? A lot of these people don't even personally know me, and they just going in on me. The women, the girls, the guys, and I didn't even know a lot of these people. But the spirits, spirits can use people, y'all. And if that person's not like yielded or submitted to the Lord, spirits can use that person. You have to understand who your real enemy is. When you're undergoing stuff like situations like that, you feel as you're being cornered, it is more so the enemy. You are to love the person, but at the time I wasn't thinking about that. No, I was just mad at the person. I was really holding a lot of resentment, and it's not easy when you're undergoing stuff like that. And then on top of trying to keep the Lord first, or drawing close to the Lord by trying to do my schoolwork and focus on my studies at the same time, I had a lot of difficulty in doing that, because the high school I went to was a college prep school, and they just consistently gave us work on a day-to-day basis as if, it was just some extreme work. So when I got home, I didn't really have a lot of time to myself. It was literally schoolwork, eat, sleep, schoolwork, eat, and sleep. And then when the summer vacation came, they gave us summer package. So, I didn't have a lot of time to myself. I didn't really have that effective amount of time that I needed with the Lord till I really got in college and I was on a break. So like for those of you're in high school and you can't really focus on the Lord as much as you want to because you have studies. Of course, as you know, the Lord, He empathized with that. I would recommend, as you're getting up in the morning, even if you have to get up an hour early, just, praying for about 5 minutes, doing a little reading within the Word. For those of you, maybe during lunch break, praying if you can kind of get by yourself, or going to the bathroom and praying for a minute, just pulling out a few scriptures, whether you making note cards and you wrote scriptures down, during breaks, you can look at those scriptures and just keep those scriptures in remembrance. I also post a video from my other channel that may help you as far as like studying the Bible, but it was very little that I could do at the time because, I couldn't give the Lord my all when I was still focusing on school. Now, I'm going to go off into a little bit more detail about that. I'm not saying that, the Lord wants everyone to do this. You have to do what the Lord wants you to do, because based on the calling that could be on your life, like, okay, school, and this is me talking, school is not necessarily for everyone, depending on what you interested in or what the Lord may want you to do. He may have you go for certain reasons, and with some others, he may have them on a completely different path. Okay, of course, high school is mandatory for me, but I'm speaking like college-wise. I had went to college. I was interested in criminal justice at the time. I lost interest, and then I spoke of my experiences on the second channel about what, my testimony, stepping out on faith when the Lord led me out of school to more so focus on the things he wanted me to do. That isn't to say he may not send me back for other reasons, for that's going to keep preparing me for things that he wants me to do. But you have to also be obedient to what the Lord wants you to do, and not to give into the peer pressure. Of course, as you know, it's a lot of peer pressure in school, mainly because a lot of we not knowing who we are in Christ. We want love, we want to fit in, we want to be accepted, so we give into a lot of things that students in school may want you to do, and it's really not worth it when you think about it, because if you have to do all those things just to get respect or get attention, it's not worth it. When you are drawn close to the Lord, it's hard when you're still in the flesh, y'all. So it does help to read. It does help to pray. And if you find yourself getting annoyed, if you find yourself holding bitterness against someone, or resentment or anger, making the choice to forgive. I believe in the past I've stated how forgiveness is a process. No, really, forgiveness is a choice. Playing around with the enemy is a choice. Making a choice to want to forgive as you're talking to the Lord, confessing that and believing that he will take that bitterness and stuff from you. He will. And I'm speaking from experience, y'all. Things have been looking up, letting go of past situations. It could be kind of hard, as I said, trying to focus on the Lord, following school. There may be some times where you may have to sacrifice. As you're drawn close to the Lord, he may reveal to you more and more what it is that he may want you to do, or you may find your desires shifting and changing. Like with me, I never really too much cared for school, to tell you the truth. It was more so an obligation because I had to do it, and I felt that I had to do this to please the people, and because I wanted a good career, I had to do all these things. But I was more so trusting and more in my way of doing things as opposed to what the Lord wanted me to do. And I had to seek the kingdom of heaven first. I had to put some things off to the side to just really focus on the Lord and give him that necessary time that he needs. Because at the end of the day, people can always give you advice about what they think you should do, but as you know, when we serve the Lord, it is all about being obedient to what it is he wants us to do. So when it comes, as I said, following Christ in high school, making as much time as you can, not neglecting the things of God, doing the praying, reading, working your way more and more into it. On summer vacations, really getting deeper into the things of God, staying in prayer, letting go of the things that could be a hindrance. Like sometimes what could be a hindrance, but you still choose to entertain those things for other reasons. Could be because of rejection, and as the Lord's cleansing you of rejection, you're going to find yourself desiring those things less and less. So you're going to be more interested into the things of God, but it's also these videos is like encouragement to embrace the training that the Lord may put you through when you are in school and you're in that atmosphere and you're experiencing a lot of those things that I was mentioning, guys. Whether it could be bullying, whether you're experiencing the rejection, whatever it may be, there's different tactics. It gives you the opportunity to explore and to observe the different ways that the enemy works to try to corner you and make you feel down. But when you have the Lord, you're not down. The enemy, he really attacks when he feels threatened. There have been testimonies for other brethren that I've heard regarding situations when it came to being in school and how the enemy, attacked them. So I say I would embrace that. Now, it's a lot of things that you could touch upon when it comes to school, and who knows, I may talk about that, go deeper into that more and more later on. But this is just a generalization of following Christ in school. There's different aspects to it too, with befriending people. So I may talk about that later in another video. But yeah, just my little first video on this page, y'all, and I pray you do find it to be helpful. Feel free to comment if you have anything that you may want to share from your experiences, or those of you can currently be experiencing that. So thank you for watching. Much love and peace be with you. God bless.